Hey guys, it's Ben with Myers Woodshop. Today I need to engrave this 4-foot piece of cedar. This is for a replacement sign that is old and busted at my son's school. We're gonna engrave some VCarved letters in here, and it's a perfect time for me to show off the Journeyman. This is the X50 Journeyman from Onefinity CNC. This is their 4-foot long machine. Follow along as I walk you through my process through Vectric, loading this thing onto the Onefinity, and then carving it out. The first thing we need to do is put this on the wasteboard. Actually, I don't even have a wasteboard. I'm just putting this down on the table. And the interesting thing with this is this live edge on the back, so I don't really have a good clampable position. So I'm just gonna be using brad nails right into the corners to hold this thing down. You're not even gonna see them, and I really like brad nails for this kind of application when you're not gonna be carving into it. So let's lay this thing down, brad nail it, and then I'll do some measurements to bring it into Vectric. Okay, here is my machine, and I'm all ready to load something. I don't have a wasteboard down. So I'm gonna put this right here, which is pretty center to everything. This is a little long, so I'm worried that I might hit the gantries up here. And I'm gonna just work in the front of the machine because I can reach everything up here. So I'm gonna get the joy pad and jog the machine this way, making sure that this isn't touching any of the gantry blocks and won't rub. So let me get that joy pad. Joy pad's here. I'm gonna raise the Z. And I'm gonna bring the machine all the way forward, taking note of these right here. Plenty far enough away from the sides where I'm at right here. Now, if I wanna get them level, it's hard because this is way wider down here and way narrow down here. There's not like a straight edge on this. So I'm gonna do my best to eyeball kind of this piece of wood. I'm gonna assume maybe this bottom piece is more level than definitely the top. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use the back side of this collet I'm gonna take off this right here. You could do this with a bit inside, I just don't have a bit in there. But I'm gonna use the back side of this to try to make a pivot point, put it right here, and I'm gonna hold that in place and move down here, and this will adjust this to be a straight line off of this. Again, this isn't really a straight line, so it's kind of the best thing I can do. So I'll come over here, I'll lower this down where it hits right there. I'm gonna hit a brad nail, go ahead and make a pivot point right here. I'm gonna hold the left trigger, run it as fast as I can down this way to about there, and then I'm gonna push this forward and it'll stop right against there. So now I know that this bottom piece is as parallel to this router as I possibly can be. So I'm gonna move that out of the way. I'm gonna shoot a brad nail over here in the dark spot so you don't really see it as much. And now our piece is pretty secure. I'm gonna do another one in the center. It's not gonna go anywhere, and all the parts are not now raised or anything like that. So our piece is down. We're not completely flat, but they want more of a rustic look, so it'll be okay. Now we need to measure this area for our Vectric. All right, now that we have our board there, we're gonna assume in Vectric, we're gonna make a square. Yeah, that's a rectangle, you moron. Now, of course, our board is kind of oblong, little weird ways. We wanna focus more in on the square inside of it. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna measure its overall length. That's what she said. The shortest length. So you can see it's longer down here and shorter up here, but I'm not being able to cut down in this area. So I want to take the shortest length we can actually cut in. And we're gonna assume that's about 51 long, 51 inches. So my X is 51 in X. And then my Y up and down, we want the shortest length we have. And it looks like it's gonna be from here to here. So the shortest we have is right on 10 inches. So we have 10 inches right here. Again, that's kind of, the box is more right about in here to where we can cut. Now I'm gonna stay away from kind of these black edges. Give myself about an inch on all directions, so I know that I'm inside this area. So now that we have our dimensions, we're gonna go over to Vectric and start programming this cut. All right, first thing we're gonna do, we're gonna open up our Vectric. I'm using Aspire, but you may use VCarve, same thing. We're gonna click Create New File, a single-sided job. We're not gonna be flipping it over, and we don't have a rotary. The width, we're in millimeters. I am in the United States, so I am used to inches a lot, so we're gonna work in inches. So I click this little button in inches. Again, I'm in VCarve or Aspire 11. The width on X, remember that's the longest point. That's the Journeyman length. That's 51 inches. And the height is 10 inches. We need to know the thickness of our board. This is about 3/4, and it doesn't matter too much because we're not gonna carve all the way through. When we zero our X, Y, Z, our 0 for the Z is going to be on the material surface. That's what I'm used to using. That's usually the default. And we're going to 0 from the bottom left. A lot of my files are from the center for the wasteboard, but most everything else is going to be bottom left. If you're going to use a probe to probe your material, it needs to be the bottom left. This is just the resolution of the model. Doesn't matter. And material settings, what color we want it. I don't care about that. We're just going to hit OK. So if we use our mouse wheel, we can scroll back and forth in the overall project. But this is it. This is our material. This is the carvable area. This is a very simple carve. This is a very beginning carve. And the only thing I'm going to be doing is VCarve text in this. To do VCarve, we're going to click on these two T's. This is the text. And we're simply just going to click on this text. And I'm going to type in what we need this sign to say. This is a sign for some Bradford pears that were planted at a school, and this is a remembrance. So this is the text. I'm trying to mimic the sign that was there, so I split it up, and we're going to center the alignment, and you can see over here, if I make it a little bigger, we can kind of move it around. And you see how it's snapping to the center, which is perfect. We have a left and right snap, and then an up and down snap. So if I have it right there, that is going to be the snapped right to the center. So this is what they want. I am doing the capitals exactly the way it was done. It actually looks like the capitals, this was all capitals in what they wanted earlier. So I'm going to change this out. The actual sign says all capitals. So this is what it says. Now I'm going to try to match the font to what was already on the sign. The sign is half broken, so it's kind of hard to guess, but I'm going to go off camera and see if I can match the font. Okay, so I found the Seconda round bold. That's the closest thing we have. So we're right where we're at. It all fits in there. And I have a good section of margin around everything here. So this, I mean, I could resize it if I wanted to. If I grab the corners, I can make it a little bigger. Maybe I'll make it a smidge bigger. And again, I grab it and I kind of align it like this. If I close that, I'm going to grab it and align it again. It brings up the alignment tool. Another way to align it, if I grab it and I click this right here, we're just going to align to material dead center. And we've moved it dead center to this. And I can zoom in and out. So that's it. That's what I want to cut. So we'll go ahead and file save right there. We're saving the design file. This is not the file you load on your controller to cut. This is the design. This will only open here. What we have to do is make some toolpaths now. So I'm going to click on this upper right, the toolpath. Click this little pin to keep this out. And what I'm going to do is click on the letters. This is all what I need to cut. I'm going to click on this V because this is the VCarve. And we're going to start with a start depth of 0.00. This is just right at the top. I am going to give it a flat depth because I do want to go somewhat deep, but I don't want to go too deep. So this stops how deep it will actually cut. Where 0.34 depth is how far we can go before we cut through. So I'm going to do 0.1. That's just an estimate. And I'm going to use a 60-degree V-bit. So I'm just going to grab this V-bit of the generic Imperial. I don't really care as long as it's a 60-degree V-bit. Now we have numbers over here we can change, and I am going to change it. I'm going to change it to 150 inches per minute, and we're going to plunge at about 40. This is just me using the machine and knowing how fast I can go with the machine. So that's a rough estimate of what we're gonna do. Ooh, inches a minute, yeah. And I'm gonna hit apply and select that. And this is called VCarve 1. So we'll hit calculate. You can see it takes us to the 3D view and it shows us what it's gonna do. These red marks are where the tool is gonna go when it's not actually cutting. You can see it's gonna jump back and forth. And if we hit over here, the preview selected toolpath, we only have one selected toolpath. We'll hit preview, and you can see we just cut out the sign. This is what it'll look like. If I zoom in, we can kind of see how deep it's gonna go. This quality of how good it looks in this preview is again from this job dimensions. If I change this to very high and hit OK, you better make sure you have a really good computer to process this. But we'll reset the preview and hit preview again. And it doesn't look that much better actually, but this is just a preview. We know it's gonna look pretty good coming out. So that's it. This is my sign. This is fairly simple. So the next step we need to do is save the project. I always save the project. So this is the project where we can edit this. But now we need to export the toolpath, the G-code. So we're going to click on the toolpath we want. Click this little floppy disk, save toolpath. And we have already selected our Journeyman right here. We know we want the Journeyman for our Onefinity because that's what I'm using. And I'm going to choose the inch because I am using inches. And we'll click Save Toolpath. Now on this, we're gonna save it to our desktop. Just that's where I'm choosing to save it for now. And I'm calling it VCarve 1. And again, please note, .ngc. This is what we're gonna save the file as, and this is what the controller reads. If we save the actual design file and that ends in .crv, you are saving the design file and the controller cannot read that. So make sure you're saving the G-code .ngc. So we'll save this. I'm going to load it onto the USB. All I'm going to do is transfer that file onto the USB stick. And now let's go to the machine and get started. All right, we're back at the machine. And now I'm going to load my 60-degree V-bit. This is part of the Myers Woodshop pack on Onefinity. It's what I recommend. It's from Bits and Bits. It's the 425 VG60 60-degree V-bit. That's what we're going to cut the sign in. Let's load it into the router. All right, so I took the collet out. I'll load it all in here. I put it in and tighten this down like that. I just use my thumb to hold this in to get it somewhat tight so the bit doesn't fall out. Then use both wrenches to ensure you get a very, very tight connection here because you don't want the bit to slip. And even when you think it's tight, it's probably not quite as tight. But use both wrenches and you'll get it very tight. Our bit's in. Okay, so first thing we're gonna do is home the machine. That tells the machine how long it can travel on all the axes. So we're just gonna click Home Machine, and it's gonna raise the Z, move the X, move the Y. Okay, we'll notice that our toolpath is okay, over. Ignore this toolpath completely. It does not matter until we zero the machine and load a file. I haven't loaded a file yet, so we have to grab the file and plug it into the back of the controller via a USB because I don't have this connected to my network. All right, we're gonna click on Open. We're gonna look for our 16 gig and we have VCarve number 1.ngc. So we'll hit OK. And now it's going to load the simulation. Right down here, you can see it's loading. If you're connected Wi-Fi, you can view the actual G-code simulation on the display straight from the controller. It will not show that. It's a limitation with the Raspberry Pi. So we just got to wait for it to finish simulating, and then we'll go ahead and zero our X, Y, and Z. All right, we're loaded. We have over. Ignore all the toolpaths still because we've loaded the file, but we haven't zeroed our machine. So let's go zero our machine. So usually you'd use a touch probe if you have that to do the corner, but I'm off of the actual cutting area, so I cannot do that. Also, my corner is not square. So we're just gonna do it by eye, and I'm gonna be using this. So I'm doing it slowly. I want it as far over as this way as I can in X, and that's as far as I can go. So I'm gonna set my 0 for X there, and my Y is going to be as short as this piece, the shortest piece that I could measure. Since we have a curve, I'm gonna go at the uppermost part of the curve. So I'm gonna give myself a little bit and move it up. So that's my X and Y 0. So let's go back over here and X, Y 0. So to do that, I simply push these buttons right here that on the X and the Y. So I X that one, and I 0 the Y. Now we're at 0 for both of those. We finally have the Z to worry about. We haven't zeroed it yet, but let's go 0 over here. For zeroing Z on a unflat, we know it's not perfectly flat piece of wood, we want to zero from the lowest point of the wood, not the highest, especially in V carving, because if we zeroed off the, let's say it was up here and this controller was the lowest point, if I zeroed off of here, it would start carving up here and it would only go down 0.1. So it wouldn't even touch this controller. But if we zero down here off of the lowest point and it starts carving, it would already go through this piece and start carving down here. Again, this is super exaggerated, so you're not gonna see this big of a difference. If you have this big of a difference in real life, that's a different issue. But we're talking like within a millimeter of flatness on here. So we're gonna find the lowest point of the board, zero our tip up and down, zero the Z on that piece, and then we'll start the carve. So let me find the lowest point. I'm gonna feel and I'm gonna look. So it feels like there's a dip right here, and I'm probably gonna zero right off of this area. So let me move this over to about here, and I'll bring it down in Z with my eye. And I'm gonna use the controller on different points. I actually may stick this point into the piece of wood, which is perfectly fine. If I twist this, I can see it's in there. That's fine for zeroing for a carve. Now, if you're doing precision metal milling, that wouldn't be good enough. But for a VCarve sign, that's gonna be an outdoor sign, this is perfect. So I'm gonna zero Z for this point. I simply come into the controller and I have Z where I need it to be, so I'm gonna push this on Z, the 0 button, and you'll notice that toolpath has now changed to OK. Only now does it matter what the toolpath said. I have 1, turn the controller on, 2, home the machine, 3, loaded the file, and 4, place my material down, and then 5, I have X, Y, and Z zeroed, and only then does this toolpath matter. So we're good to go. This means we're ready to run the file. Now I'm gonna lift my Z up. I am really close and I don't wanna start right there. So I'm gonna take my controller and I'm gonna lift the Z up. I'm gonna move it over here to start with, because I know it's gonna start over here. And then I'm gonna turn the router on and hit play and we'll start carving. So that's how you set up a file, especially with Vectric. And we're ready to carve this whole sign in VCarve. Now that we've loaded everything, it's ready to go. I'm gonna turn my speed to about 3. We never really wanna go up to 6. I'm usually about 3 for all my carves. And turn on the router first before you hit play. Spinning and we're ready to go. On the screen, we'll scroll down. Here's our start button, our stop button. We're gonna hit play. All right, just finished. Let's turn off the router. Let's get the joypad and move it out of the way. Check out how it cut. And here we go. That's what it looks like. It's beautiful. Let's get this vacuumed up and take it off. Now we're just gonna use our breaker bar and pop it right up. And we're all done. Now they'll all paint the letters and we'll be finished. So what I like to do is pull the brad nails out. So this one went right through the table. I never pull out from the front because you'll leave a bigger hole. So always pull it out from the back. So we're gonna grab any brad nails we find and pull them out. The middle two actually pulled out from the back. They stayed into the table. This one I'm gonna grab from the back side and pull through all the way through. And I'll leave a smaller hole on the front side and you won't even see it. along with these two down here. I just grab it with a pair of grips and pull it through. And grab this and pull it through. And that leaves us with these holes that you can barely see right here, right here. They're really small, and when it's mounted outside, you'll never see it. It's also getting stained a darker stain, so that's how I mount this. Final stage, I'm gonna take a nylon brush and brush into the letters. Make sure we get anything, little fuzzies in there, we'll get those out. And boom, we're done. Super simple, super awesome, and 4-foot long carves on the Journeyman from Onefinity CNC. Make sure to follow me on the socials. I'll post some pics of this finish. It's gotta get painted and then stained. That's someone else's job, so I can't show you in this video. Make sure to follow me at Myers Woodshop on all the socials so you can check out what this sign looks like finished. That'll do it for this one, guys. Make sure to like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell when I come out with more videos. Check out my friends at Onefinity CNC. The Journeyman is what I use. It's the 48 by 32 cutting area. I'll leave links in the description below. Happy cutting. We'll see you next time.